Hold this. And we'll grab the tripod.
At times of great crises, at times of war, sometimes we see the worst of man, and sometimes we see the best of man. We're seeing both during this particular war. We see the ugly face of Hamas, the terrorists who seek to kill, maim, abduct men, women, and children, old and young alike. And we see Am Yisrael wake up. Am Yisrael rise to the occasion. People, it doesn't matter what their backgrounds are, how old they are, how young they are, men, women, children, everyone joining one effort to defeat the enemy, to unite after a year, a very difficult year, of a lack of unity amongst the nation. We are seeing the greatest unity of all time. The war is bringing out the wonderful side of Am Yisrael, the true side of Am Yisrael, one that loves each other, one that cares for each other. In great tragedy, great men are built, and great men are born. Not so long ago, Rabbi Leo D. lost his wife and his daughters in a horrific terrorist attack. Anyone would be justified after such a heinous crime to humanity to just close up into himself, to go into a corner, and to cry. But that was not the reaction of Rabbi Leo D. Rabbi D, he stood up in front of the nations of the world. He stood up in front of heads of state, and he told the truth as it is, and he became Israel's #1 spokesman. He spoke without embarrassment like David Melech. I will stand before He will not be embarrassed. He made a name for himself as a person who's a true fighter for Israel, a spokesman, an emissary, with eloquence and without embarrassment, boldly stating the truth and bringing with him everywhere he went. It is a great honor for us to have Rabbi D here with us and invite him to give us, in this time of difficulty, words of strength and encouragement for everyone here. Thank you, Rabbi D, for coming.
It's literally just felt because I was putting in. You're trying, but thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you to this evening. As Rabbi said, when the tragedy struck my family, 6 months to the day, by the way, 7th of April, not 7th of October, I mean, strange things happened in the sense that the whole of Am Yisrael seemed to come behind us, which was an amazing zechut. And I didn't cry a lot. I cried a little bit each day, but I was very busy in the Shiva and afterwards with lots of different things that I was doing. But I felt that like a million people were crying for us. And people I bumped into the street would sort of give a hug and cry. So I felt like I could do something else. I've said to people that when you hurt your hand, you scream in pain. When, God forbid, somebody loses a parent, they cry. When a tragedy happens that is so great that you can't explain it, describe it, you weren't prepared for it, there's no books written about it, there's no one's been through it before, then you don't know how to react. Okay? And no one's judging how you react. And I think what happened on Shabbat was one of those tragedies for Am Yisrael, in the sense that I feel that what happened to me and in a private capacity, and I feel the pain of what happened to Am Yisrael is probably very, very similar on Shabbat, what we're all feeling. And we don't know how to react, okay? And we have choices how to react. We can cry, and maybe someone's cried or feel the pain, whatever. And that's a valid reaction. And many different reactions. You can be scared, that's another valid reaction. But I want to discuss a third possible reaction that we can have, and I think that's a reaction which we see in Rabbi Akiva, and I think that the reason that the Gemara action is because of this, because I think he does want him to be a role model. So Rabbi Kiva, a couple of stories from Rabbi Kiva that we know about, was the one who laughed when he saw the fox crossing the Temple Mount, destroyed Temple Mount, and he said because there are two prophecies. Micha prophesied it was going to be destroyed, the area that was going to be rebuilt, and now that I've seen one fulfilled, I've seen the other fulfilled, so now I can believe that the third temple will be rebuilt. So Rabbi Kiva was this optimist who saw in the deepest tragedy the seeds of hope. They say about a pessimist and an optimist. A pessimist is someone who thinks the world's at its worst possible, and the optimist agrees. The pessimist thinks the world's at its worst possible, and the optimist agrees, because he thinks, if it's its worst possible, it can only go one way. So Rabbi Kiva was that optimist who said, if things would go that bad, then tomorrow they can only get better. And because he was the one who had 24,000 students, and he had 500 funerals over 50 days, that was 500 funerals a day, right? So Shabbat was a worse day in the Jewish history than the time of the Omer of the slaughter of Rabbi Akiva's students by the Roman army. That's how we can understand what happened. So just to put it in perspective. And yet, what did he do? He went out and he trained 5 rabbanim, right? After 24,000 were killed, he didn't lose hope, he went off and he did. So Rabbi Kiva was this great personality. He was able to transfer this energy of pain, suffering, which he certainly felt, but into something productive. Okay, so I wanted to hold that thought for a minute. When this happened to me, people came to the shiva, and a lot of people brought gifts and notes, which I have to say and admit are still sitting on a stack in my lounge, because it's one of those difficult things to do is to read these Kabbalah's notes. So please don't one day in the future I'll read them. But somebody brought a gift, a couple of sparring. Turned out to be Rabbi Chaim Friedlander, Siftei Chaim, which I never heard of and I never read. And I just picked it up one day because I was a bit bored. And I opened it up. It was about Tzaddik Barala. And I, like you, have heard many shiurim about Tzaddik Barala, and the Rabbi in my shul spoke recently about it. He said, everything that Hashem does is good, sometimes we don't see it, and that's the end of the story. And before 6 months ago, I would have said, that's a great thing. Yeah, everything's good, and sometimes we can see it. It's like a tapestry, and on the back it's all mixed up, and on the front it's all clear, and we see the back, and we don't see the front. And that would be very nice, but to me, it didn't hit the spot after what I've been through. And when I read Rav Friedlander, it did. Okay, and I'll tell you what he said. Based on Rav Chal, the Rabban, everyone, he's the Mashkiach of Ponovich or something. It's like it's got good credentials, so you can trust it. So he says there are 2 mechanisms that Hashem uses to rule the universe. He says one is schar v'onesh, which we understand. Reward and punishment. If we do mitzvot, we'll have a good life. If we keep Shabbat, we'll have good mental health, right? If we live in a good Jewish community, so we'll have lots of friends. If we send our kids to Cheder, then they'll grow up to be good people. We'll have a happy family life and everything will be fine. And that is how my life was up until 6 months ago, and that's how everybody in this country's life was until about 3 days ago. And we're living in this sort of beautiful world of everything is basically hunky-dory. But then it says there's a second mechanism, which is called mazal. He said, what does mazal mean? I didn't know this word, mazal. If you think about it, what does mazal mean? Right? It doesn't mean luck. What's that?
Constellation.
So he says it comes from the root nezilot, nezilah. Nezil, like flowing, like dripping, as far as I understand. So he says, the way I understand it is, well, imagine if your life is like one of those airplane meals covered in cellophane, right? So within that cellophane, inside that package, everything just happens in its sort of natural method, right? Natural way. And Hashem created the universe with laws so that everything would happen in a sort of certain way, and that we work within those ways, and we have free will, and at the same time, basically, we'll head towards Gula, right? But the problem is with free will, it doesn't always go that way. You sometimes get very evil people like Hitler and like the Hamas, and those people who basically will confound it so that it will go slightly off course. And therefore Hashem has to make a few sort of adjustments on the way. How does he do adjustments? He makes a little hole in the cellophane and he drips in and prods something inside in order to just push it along. And who does he prod? He prods the Jewish people. right? These Jewish people are his agent for changing history. So when Hashem wants to move something along, he acts through us as his agent. I thought that was very interesting. And I've got time with this to add to an idea. Take out your tzitzit, right? The Shema is three paragraphs, right? The first paragraph in Shema is right? Believe in God, right? That makes sense. You teach your kids, first thing you teach your kids, say it twice a day, I believe in God, makes sense. Second one is Svaramonish, right? So, if I live a good life, I do the mitzvah, I'll be fine. If I don't, I won't be fine. I think that makes sense as well to teach your kids and say it twice a day. The third paragraph is tzitzit, right? Maybe it's a Mitzrayim, maybe all mitzvahs or something, but basically it doesn't make sense. To me, it's just, that's what it is. Right? And we're trying to explain it, but it doesn't make sense why that's the third paragraph. And it's by the way, it's not chronologically in the right place. There's a lot of questions about it. Let me give you a different understanding based on paragraph 5. I think the tzitzit are a model of mazal. Right? In other words, you take try and tell me which two threads of your tzitzit connect. Right? There are four strings, and they end up in 8 endings, right? Tell me which two are connected to which two, right? You can't do that. There are 1,000 lots of strings. There are this absolute, now, I know 100% certain that 2 of them do connect. I just don't know which ones. Okay, what a great model for mazal. I know that Hashem has a plan. I have no idea what it is, right? And I think that's the message of tzitzit. By the way, if you have a blue one, Techelet represents, what's the blue one represent? Kisei Kavod Hashem, and the Gemara has a strange formula. It says it reminds you of the sea, reminds you of the sky, reminds you of Kisei Kavod. Why don't you just say reminds you of Hashem, right? I think what it's saying is that actually, if you're the type of person who actually sees Hashem in everything you do, then basically, then you've made the connection. In other words, the one thread that you can't find the 2 ends together, put together is the blue one. There's only one of them. Right? So maybe that's the message of the Techelet in the tzitzit. Anyway, that's the point being here that Hashem has a plan. We don't know what that plan is. Okay? And by the way, anyone who tells you that they do, I hope the rabbis here said that there was to do with sneer tonight. I'm saying that sometimes a rabbi will come out and say this tragedy happened because the women weren't dressed properly, or because of the party, or because of this, because of that. Rabbi Shai Shechter, I listen to, says very vehemently every time that someone comes out of that, says he doesn't know, right? Who is he God, right? Only God knows why he does things. Anyone who claims now comes out and says it's because of X is either lying, stupid, or just whatever. Okay, so the question is, what do we do, right? We have a model of Rabbi Akiva how to deal with tragedy, right? Sometimes we have to look at the good, somehow to look at positive outcomes. We know that things happen for a reason, and we're here, okay? So let me say something. Let me ask a question. How many of you guys feel frustrated that you're here, but you can't do something that you'd like to do? It's nice social pressure, right? Okay. Let me answer it. Let me hear something. You guys are part of the army. Okay? You guys are Hashem's army. Okay? As much as I would say this, but you don't risk your life like the guys on the field. You're just as important as the guys in the field. Okay? And I'll explain to you why. Okay? There are 3 things that Torah stands on, right? From Pirkei Avot, have Torah, Avodah, Maaseh Tavim, right? Committed trusting. Torah, you're studying here. Okay? Torah gives you the tools to understand what's right and what's wrong. Okay, so you've got those tools. You can't assume that you've learned enough up to now to be ready for this moment. Okay, Torah is there to prepare you. I mean, the Torah is a level of preparation for all your life. But one of the things the Torah does is prepares you for a crisis. Okay, this is a crisis, and you are very well prepared, more prepared than most Jewish boys your age in the world. Okay? Number 2, tefillah. Right? Tefillah is the opportunity to connect with Hashem, and we believe believes that by praying we actually do change the outcome, right? Not because we change Hashem's mind, but because Hashem has already made the decision that if there's prayer, then He will change His mind. So the more prayer, we pray 3 times a day, that's great, okay? But let me say the third thing, you're interested in, okay? And this is where I think your particular army is very valid, okay? You've selected yourself, right? Hashem selected you, whatever it is. You are in your year in Israel, right? In the first time in 50 years there's been anything like this, right? Your parents and your grandparents probably didn't experience anything like this, right? You have come, and it's right at the beginning of your year, right? So you come here and this has happened, okay? There's a reason for that. You are all English speakers, right? From America with great connections in America and the diaspora, okay? The biggest challenge for Israel, I would say the equal challenge for Israel, it's not just a military challenge. That I think most people think we probably have the power to do what we need to do. The biggest challenge for Israel today is the media challenge, is the legitimacy challenge, is the ability to complete this operation. Because what normally happens is that after a few days, America turns around and the rest of the world comes around and says, "We've got to stop. You killed too many Palestinians." Okay, this time it can't happen. Okay, this time we have to make this the last time. So you're here, and Israel needs English speakers to basically communicate for her, and I think that maybe that's part of why you're here, okay? Or you can think about why you're here. I mean, there are different possibilities, right? That's one option. So let me tell you something. If you feel you want to do something, that's Hashem telling you need to do something. Okay? And the worst thing to do, in my experience in life, is when you have that feeling you don't do something, okay? Because you'll regret it and it will not work out well. Okay? The best thing to do when you have that feeling is to do something and then decide what to do. Okay? Now, another aspect of being in Israel is that Israel is not a place where people hand you something to do and they ask you to do something. Right? They're so disorganized. I was talking to Rabbi earlier. They're so disorganized. I mean, we've seen how badly organized we were on Shabbat. But soldiers turned up in front on Shabbat and they waited for 4 to 6 hours before any water or food arrived. And in fact, they didn't arrive, and mostly it was neighbors, local people who provided them with food. And in a frat, they provided them with food and making barbecues, whatever. And it's not just because of being nice, it's because there really isn't any food for these soldiers at the moment in this country. There's not even bulletproof vests and helmets. So I got a call from a captain on the northern border saying, can I help him raise money to buy equipment for his team? I mean, it is a balagan out there, okay? Nobody will be asking you to do anything because they probably don't even know that you're here, and there's no agency in the government that could contact you or be in contact. I mean, that's how badly organized it is. You need to get together in small groups, in my opinion, 2, 3 at a time. Think about what you want to do, how you want to contribute, and just do it. Okay? Don't ask anybody. I mean, ask Rabbi's permission, but just get on and do it. Okay? I'll give you some suggestions. Number one, I think the media battle is huge. If you're, generally speaking, you choose something to do which connects to your passion. Okay? Your passion is that thing that you do when you have a bit of spare time, and just and you revert to it. Right? Most of us, or many of us, revert to our phones at the moment. Right? If you're somebody who just likes sitting on your phone watching all these videos, then rather than just watching all these gruesome videos, how about producing a video? Okay, I did one yesterday. It took me about an hour or 2 on my phone. I don't need a computer. I'm not even that good. I'm sure you guys are much more okay? Israel needs videos. Okay, it needs videos in English. Okay, I just got one to check from the Misrada Hasbara. Okay, the English was so atrocious, it was just written like a 3-year-old. Okay. Everyone in this room is more qualified to make propaganda videos, PR videos, whatever you call them, for Israel than anyone in Israel, okay? And they need it, okay? We need to communicate a particular message, and I'll tell you what the message is. In previous wars in Israel, we've always communicated that we are the victim. They attacked us, how terrible it is, look how much damage, we didn't provoke them, and it's terrible. That works for about 2 or 3 days, and we get the sympathy of the world. Then what happens is we turn around and start smashing the enemy, and when their numbers of casualties go much higher than ours, everybody says, look, now they're the victim, now you're the aggressor, so now stop. Now that can't happen this time. So this time, the message is different, if you look out, you see the message differently. The message is not being with the victim. Well, it started off as the victim. The message very quickly switched to it's good versus evil. Okay? This is a battle of good versus evil. Because if we're the tzaddikim and they're Rashayim, we have the right to wipe them out. So Bibi said last night that Hamas is ISIS. Okay? That's a very important statement. Hamas is ISIS. ISIS, everybody agrees, has to be wiped out. And Bibi said that last night. So that's the message. Okay, it's a difficult message because we never had it before. And many Israelis don't believe that we are tzaddikim, and we're Jews, that we're very critical of ourselves, whatever. But against these people, we are tzaddikim, okay? And that is the message we do. We need to have messages that show how bad they are, how good we are, the great things that are happening in this country, the great way that we treat Arab citizens in this country, the way that we with technology in the country, all this stuff compared to what's coming out of Gaza and how they've had the opportunity in the last 20 years to build up a great society, and they felt. So these are things which you could communicate. If you don't communicate, you could pass on messages to a point of distribution of these messages through to other networks. Okay. There are also about 20 or 30 different charities which have started up yesterday, and probably another 50 will start up tomorrow, to raise money for soldiers, to raise money. I mean, one family who looks after, that helps my kids, I sent them on a couple of trips recently. The guy called me today, he said, can we quote, whatever we use, a statement of yours, I said, fine. He said, the number of bereaved kids in Israel has doubled on Shabbat. The number of bereaved kids, or kids from bereaved families, has doubled in this country on Shabbat. Okay? That's a number which I didn't answer. He said we raised $75 million in the last 22 years for this. He said we need $75 million in the next 5 years in order to supply the service to those families now. It's just like, I mean, you can't imagine. You can imagine other charities that deal with these type of things are also just completely under pressure. So if you guys happen to have connections in America, or people who, or you know people who know people who know people who could raise money, you could take one of these charities under your belt, and you can find out what their issues are, what their message is, and what their website is, and you can send it out to people, and you can ask people, and you can approach people. You could be that would be an amazing activity in itself. And then, of course, there's the physical stuff, going out making food for soldiers, and handing out to any of you guys. If it's allowed, but you could rent a car between you, and you could go off and drive stuff to places or whatever. I'm not suggesting that because it may not be allowed. But I'm saying, basically, the world is a oyster. Okay, I really recommend that you get together in small groups and you think about what your contribution could be. Okay, and it won't be that somebody will tell you, I've come to tell you three things. Maybe I'm wrong, and those are not the most important things. Maybe they're much more important things I haven't thought about. Maybe you'll find out by looking at social media or speaking to your friends, whatever it is, what those things are. But there are things, and you guys can play a massive part in this, and Israel needs you. Okay, and it won't instruct you in the same way that it didn't instruct most of these people. I'm going to tell you a story. I was listening to Rabbi Gottlieb in the car this morning, and he said that they called up the Air Force. They called up the Air Force guys on Sunday. They were worried. They called 100% of the people they wanted. They were worried that they would only get 60% people turning up because, like say, 40% had refused to come to service. When the people turned up, the number that turned up was 120% of who they'd asked. He said not only every single person who refused to come, he said, but another 20% of people heard that people had been called up, and they hadn't been called up, but they came voluntarily. So Am Yisrael was at sort of 50-50, 60-40, disunity, appeared to be disunified. We're now at 120% unity. Okay, that's where we are. Okay, and people are volunteering, because they're not being asked, and that's our role. Okay, the Torah is about autonomy. What you're learning here is about how to behave as a human being, on your own will. No one's going to be whipping you, telling you to do anything, right? So you need to use your initiative and your imagination to work out what you can do. And you guys could create amazing, from this could come amazing things. I was at the girls' SEM just earlier, and another idea that somebody had was, what about teaching, learning with Chilanim, maybe, non-religious Jews, right? The world which we had on Friday, it's not the world that we had on Sunday. Okay, the world we had on Friday is not the world that on Friday. You had Democrat Jews in New York, who hated Israel and who would hated religion and hated everything, right? and reform and conservative reconstruction, whatever. I said on Sunday everybody's religious and unified. I mean, maybe I'm simplifying it, I'm being a bit optimistic, but basically the world has changed. Okay, the potential now for you to work with these guys, maybe friends of your people, contact you have whatever, to hold shirim by Zoom or to have contact with them, has completely changed. Everything that you knew to be true in the past is not true now. So you need to, the reality will only be discovered over time, and there is up to you to predict what like you need to test it and see it and find out what has changed. Okay, but we're living in a parallel universe. I've spoken a bit too long. I want to summarize that. I want to say that we can choose how we react. Okay, it's very sad, and that's looking back. Okay, I say my life, I'm happy and I'm sad. I'm sad when I think about the past, and I'm happy when I think about the future. And I think that sums up my feelings about what happened. I'm sad if I think about what happened on Shabbat, and I'm very enthusiastic about what is going to happen in the future. The last thing is, I know some of you are thinking about going back to America. I don't know if I've mentioned something, I've heard me say this in other forums. There are 14 million Jews in the world, 7.2 million of them now live in Israel, that's more than half. The Ramban says that every Jew should live in Israel anyway, and always. The Ramban said it was only mitzvah d'Rabbanan, but now even the Ramban agrees that it's a mitzvah d'oraita to live in Israel because the majority of Jews roba al ba'aretz. That means that the heter to live in America or Britain or outside of Israel is gone, because the heter was based on the fact that being a rabbinical law, and there's Hefsed Meruba, and there's Sorat Gadol, and all different reasons why you're allowed to keep a rabbinical law. There is no heter not to live in Israel from now. So it's not that you should be going back to America, it's that you should be calling your parents and saying they should come on first plane here. So I know that's a tough message, and some people are not ready for it, but that is truth, and so I apologize. Okay, and I'm sure that all of you can play a great part in this war effort, and I think not only contribute, but find new ways to contribute and actually create new concepts that people haven't even talked about. So I wish you tzlacha, and I know that you'll stand up to the challenge, and we're heading into very new, uncharted territory.
Lots of rock.
Okay, thank you very much, Rabbi. As we go along, I'm going to talk about a few more opportunities that just came